Episode 5 at last, after all those in-betweens and whatnot. Alright, so today I'm going to be teaching you about the wonderful thing that is JavaScript object notation. Now, JavaScript object notation, according to json.org, is a lightweight data interchange format. It is easy for humans to read and write, and it is easy for machines to parse and generate. Now, what is JSON precisely? What do people use it for? Why does it exist? Well, JSON is usually used to send information over the internet. However, we're going to cheat a little bit and make it a configuration file on our computer so that we can then use it for our bot instead of the terrible practice that is, a dozen separate files for admins and chat and just whatever else. So, before we start anything, we have to add a reference known as system.web.extensions. How you do this is you go over to the right where your Solution Explorer is, you right-click on References, and then you hit Add Reference. Now, it makes it easier to search, but you can also just scroll down or whatever. But search system.web.extensions. Check this box and hit OK. As you can see, it is now right there. However, we need to do just a bit more than that in order to make it work. So go up here, and using system.web.extension, or not dot extensions, .script, serialization. Now, why we need this is in order to parse and create JSON. Otherwise, it's difficult and you'd have to write your own parser, and that's just a mess. A lot of people prefer to use the Newtonsoft, which is someone else's pet project, which is better in a lot of aspects compared to this. However, you would also have to include another dynamic link library and everything. But again, just check it out if you really want to, but this works just fine for what we're going to be doing. So, here's what our JSON config is going to look like originally. It's going to look something like this. Now, you might be wondering, hey, why aren't you showing me more? Well, for one, it would involve a bit more effort on my part, which isn't a problem, and we might go over a lot more new things later in the future. However, for now, I'm just gonna give you the basics so that you can, come up with your own thing and your own ways, and because the uses for this are basically unlimited. I use it for a lot of my own programming, simply because it's easy to read, it's easy to write, just as they said. So, it's fairly bare bones, like I said. But the easiest way to make a JSON object in C# is to go to a website called json2c#.com. Now, you're gonna paste your JSON here. Oops, that. Or, well, not your JSON, but maybe later your JSON. But it's gonna be easier for me to type it out, so this, then admins, and then this little box, chatty, false. So let me explain this really quick. This would be a string. Of course, you always have to have commas after the end of an object. This is a string. That should be correct. Yeah, this is correct. Ignore that. So this is how you would do a string. This is how you would do a bool variable. And this is how you would do an array. Now, hey, why are we doing an array? Well, I've had quite a few people ask me about multiple administrators. So, and I've been able to do this for a while. I just figured, at the time it was easier for me to just show you the single. However, with this, you can paste in multiple Steam IDs, like assume that's a Steam ID, and this is another Steam ID, and this is also another Steam ID. So then we'll code into our program something to iterate through all of these and change our isbot admin in order to account for that. I'm going to grab mine really quick. If you don't know about this website, you really should, steamidconverter.com. It's fantastic. It converts Steam IDs, obviously. So you can do vanity URLs, like here, and it'll give you all the information you'll need to know. So it's going to be a Steam ID 64, of course. So I'm just going to paste that in. So then you're going to hit generate. Then it's going to give you this. So then you're going to hit copy and copy it. Then you're going to go at the very bottom of your project. This is technically considered poor practice. However, because it's not that big of a deal, our project isn't that big yet, we're just going to keep it in here. What's normally considered good practice is to, right-click, add, and then a new class file. But we can just do this for now. You're gonna want to change this to either ulong or uint64. I prefer doing it this way simply because of uniformity, and you get that beautiful greenish blue. So enough about that object. Now, how are we going to load this into our program? How are we going to access any of it? Well, first, you're going to go very top. Along with all these, you're going to create a static root object and name it config. Then you're going to go all the way past your callbacks. It doesn't matter where you put it, it's just, again, another uniformity thing. I like to keep all my callbacks in one place. So, public, static, and then name it reload config. That's a void, my bad. Now, of course, how do we tell if a file does not exist? We do if file.exists. Then we're going to say look for config.config. If it does not exist, please create this. Now I'm going to show you another neat website that I discovered after, lots of annoyance. So go to buildmystring.com. You could always do this manually, but I find buildmystring.com to be a lot more reliable. Oops, not that. Buildmystring.com. There we go. So you see there are tons of options. You don't need to care about any of these, although you might want to click that. It's not important, I just think it looks pretty. And then string builder. You can also do this one, but again, string builders look pretty. So now we're going to do this. We're going to paste our JSON in. I'm just going to type it out since it's easier that way for me. And then you're going to hit build my string. As you can see, it's generated a handy little snippet for us that we can use. Now, this is going to be a godsend for you later, or if you end up having larger configuration files with tons of neat options. This will be a godsend, because it helps out a ton for this kind of thing. So you're just going to copy and paste that in. And that's basically it for if file.exists. However, past that, we're now going to deserialize the json.config. But first, you'll want a try-catch deal. This is because if you screw up somewhere in the config, the JSON serializer is going to crash your program unless you catch the exception. Now right here, just do console.writeLine e.message. Now you don't have to do it this way, it's probably, we'll get into that later, it'll look a lot prettier way later in, but for now just leave it like that, or if you feel like doing something like, oh no, an error. Just do this and it'll do like, oh no, an error, and then it'll be like, okay, something's wrong, this is what's wrong. and then console.read key, so that we need input from the user before attempting to retry. This gives the user information as to what's wrong, and then we'll call our own function again, assuming that the user is fixed between this and the time they hit enter. So, we're gonna do something neat. This comes from the Java, this comes from what we just added, system.web.script.serialization. So you're going to create a JavaScript serializer. And just name it anything, but JSS is more understandable. Equals new JavaScript serializer. And then you're going to set config equal to jss.deserialize, and then root object. So this is going to be like, okay, so we're going to receive data from here, file, read all text, config.config. So that was some of that might have gone over your head there for a second. So this is a root object, as you can see, which is why we created it, and we're setting it equal to what is essentially another root object. This is what this means. We want whatever's in here to be put into this format, which is then set, which is then put into config. So that wraps it up for JSON, but well, how do we access any of this? You know, what do we do here? You're gonna do this. We're gonna make a few changes. Our first change is gonna be to the isBotAdmin, because now we've got this fancy array that can have more than one administrator. So I'm just going to copy my Steam ID really quick. So you can have multiple Steam IDs in here, as many as you want, in fact. But since I don't really have any other people to test this with, there's just going to be mine. But rest assured it will work, because I have it working in a ton of my other bots. So just remember to put a comma between each one. Okay, so now that we've got a Steam ID in here, what are we going to do? We're going to go into isBotAdmin. Now, we have no need for admin.txt anymore, so get rid of that code right here. This is no longer important. And then, since this doesn't exist anymore, we're just going to do this, but then it's going to give us an error because this does not make sense. So, we're going to create a for each. I don't know if we've discussed this in the past, as my memory is a bit strange. I think that we did back when I discussed how chat works. Nope. Okay. So a for each is, if you're familiar with programming, is it's basically a for statement, but way easier to read. I mean, usually, you know, it's not that hard to read, but anyway. So a for each is literally what it means, is that it for each of a for each uint 64, since a Steam ID is an unsigned integer, UI, just name it anything, but I prefer UI, in. So for each unsigned integer inside of, but now where do we look? Well, JSON populated this at the start. So for each uint64 in config.admins. Then you're going to do, okay, so if UI is equal to the SID, return. In fact, we don't even need these brackets. Return true. So it's going to check every single unsigned integer inside of the config, and if any of them match whatever this is being called from, then it's going to return true. If not, it's going to do this as usual. So it's a very simple change, but you now are able to have multiple administrators. How exciting is that? Now I'm going to explain this really quick. You don't need this, it was just an example, but chatty. So what if we don't want our bot specifically to talk? Well then, we would go here. We would go here, and then do if config.chatty. If it is not config.chatty, return. And then we're also going to put that over in the on-chat message. So what this is going to do is it's going to check the configuration file to see if the bot is supposed to chat. If it is not supposed to chat, then we're just going to quit. Not the program, we're just not going to go anywhere near the chatting stuff. Okay, so now that we've got all that out of the way, we're going to add a few new commands. Well, not a few, just a single command. #region, reload, config, and region. This is in case you make any changes, but you don't want to restart the bot. If it is not an admin, oops, callback.sender, return, else, reload config. Then you can also just copy and paste that. Break. Forgot the break. Make sure you have that. And then I'm just going to copy and paste this over into the group chat message. Then we're going to change this to chatter ID. Alright. So it is now time for demonstrations. Let us start the bot. Ooh, this is exciting. Something went wrong. Okay, I'm an idiot. Okay, we didn't populate any of this. Go to main, reload config. That was my bad, because we need to populate the config before we do anything. Okay, silly me. I was trying to do this without looking at my notes. So, we forgot to do this. File.write, all text. Config.config. And then sb.toString. So, this is going to create our config. That was totally my bad. So here we go. It's now working, as you can see, no errors. Connect, logged in. So that should no longer crash. So the bot should not respond. As you can see, the bot is no longer talking to us. As you can see, the bot now outputs all of its friends. So what are we going to do now? We're going to go here. Then I'm going to go to tutorial bot. Okay, delete that. And then config.config. This is what it looks like. So, say this person has been very bad. We no longer want them to be able to use the bot. We just have to exit that and say we now want the bot to talk to people. So, oh no. We're going to reload the config. The config has now been reloaded. Yeah, okay, I'm going to try to friend somebody. Friend 00000. This can be like, oh no, you are not about admin. Now ABC, or ABC. The bot now responds. That's as simple as it is, really. It's nothing too complex. If you ever have trouble generating your JSON, there is a wonderful website called jsoneditoronline.org. So as you can see, it gives you a wonderful demonstration of all the various things that you are able to do. And we can, if your JSON somehow gets messed up, you can do something like this. However, with this website, there has been an issue in the past where sorting configs causes unsigned integers to get all funky. So we're just going to do like, oh no. And then, oops. See? For some reason it likes to mess things up. Don't know why, but that's what it does. So be careful with that. And if you input something wrong, it also helps you find issues. Oh no, okay, so I'm missing a comma. So that's the wondrous world of this JSON-editor-online.org. It just makes things easy. So, that's basically everything. Do a bit of reading on JSON, see all the wonderful things you can do. We'll probably touch on this topic again on some more advanced aspects of the bot. I don't know what my next video is going to be, so if any of you have any suggestions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. Please don't ask for trading. I don't know how to do that, or rather it's in Python, or at least libraries that support it are in Python, and I don't know Python. So, but other than trading, drop any questions or comments or suggestions for my next video. I do accept criticism. In fact, I welcome it. And if you would like to donate, if you have a PayPal account or anything, just donate to my email address included in the description below. Again, that has no impact on whether or not I continue my botting, my programming videos. It just helps me pay for my textbooks. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.